I think I was watching something else on Friday, and I after the fact, I'm sorry that I was watching something else because I had to go rewatch SmackDown because there was so much that happened in SmackDown on Friday night. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. I'm the AntMan, and he's Michael. This is WrestleChat, here to just talk about some things that went down this week in pro wrestling. Thanksgiving this week. That means War Games and Survivor Series is coming up this weekend. And just to be honest, we're recording this before Monday Night Raw. So the way WWE's been going, that could be stacked coming up tonight. And we have 3 more matches. Because right now there's only 3 that I see that are actually on the card. Is that surprising to you?
Not really. Not in this new age of the way they've been booking pay-per-views. You and I both know that they've pulled way back on match numbers or match counts or whatever you want to say.
Well, that War Games match goes like an hour 10, hour 15 just by itself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen the 1 or 2 that have happened. I can't remember the time intervals. I don't know if it was like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't remember what it is, but it takes time. It adds up when you're dealing with 5 people.
It's like the Royal Rumble. You don't really realize it's been going on for an hour.
Yeah.
As the new people keep coming in. Let's go ahead and hit that. War Games coming up on Survivor Series coming up on Saturday. War Games being the big matches. One for the men, one for the women. Starting with the guys, original Bloodline now has their 5th member. We'll dive into that coming up here in just a little bit. But so now you have Roman Reigns and you have Sammy and you have Jimmy and Jay and just added CM Punk. Huge surprise. Like I said, we'll jump into that in a bit. But Solo, Jacob, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Bronson Reed, which just feels like he resembles the other guys, but was that a weird one to you to be added into the mix?
No, I really don't think so. I think I don't want to overanalyze Bronson Reed, but he was having a hard time fitting in, not because of the quality of the work he was doing, because he's been great. Everything I've seen from him, I've really enjoyed. But he just didn't fit with this monster character that they kept trying to do, mainly because you can see more out of him. So what I'm hoping is that in this saga with the Bloodline, and to be honest, you have to look historically, we may or may not have said the same thing with Sami Zayn, because Sami didn't fit.
That was going to be my point too. Yeah.
Fit the mold back then. And
he definitely did not.
it actually, it actually makes sense to have a Bronson Reed opposite side Sami Zayn. It just makes everything work, and I'm cautiously optimistic that Bronson will continue in the new Bloodline, because I think it could really, really work for him, because, Solo was the enforcer of previous Bloodline.
That's true.
And you don't really have that enforcer type character in the new Bloodline. And so, because, the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu, you might look at him, but they're sitting on him to do other things with. And so Bronson coming in and kind of taking that, I think, is going to be absolutely perfect.
Well, and we brought it up before. There's a whole slew of rabbits being hatched at the moment that are going to soon be coming into WWE that are his size, maybe bigger, and could just pop him out if they need to. Yes, he does. He fits in much better than Sammy did. That Sammy piece was a comic relief to a very, very serious Bloodline at the time, and someone who looked nothing like anybody in the Bloodline, which is part of what made it even more humorous. Bronson at least almost looks like it. My wife was asking me when we were watching it. She's like, they're all brothers, right? Kind of, but that one's from New Zealand. Yeah. I don't know how to describe this one. The biggest thing is in this match, though, in the War Games match for this, it's not so much who wins it, but the results of what come out of it, the incidents that happened during the match, or the other thing. I don't know why alarm just went off. Time to talk about wrestling, I guess. But the whole deal of it, what happens during the match with the new addition to the original Bloodline side. If we want to, we can jump into that. On Friday, we saw the return of Paul Heyman, which, just a week prior, his phone was shut off. The line had been disconnected and no longer in service when Roman tried to call. This week, not even looking for him, gets Paul Heyman, but Paul Heyman has a surprise, and it's the 5th member, a Paul Heyman guy, CM Punk. Shocking to you when you saw it?
I was prepared for something, but I didn't know what it was. I thought Seth Rollins fruit hanging too low.
Yeah,
You know,
agreed.
Cody Rhodes doesn't make sense. I was very thankful, around this in the video segments leading up to that reveal, Roman talking about no, we're not doing anything with Cody.
No.
It very much helped the why. And I read online that some people were disappointed. I'm like, this makes perfect sense to me. He's not a villain, or he's not a like a bad guy against the Bloodline. He's not for the Bloodline. It just is what it is. He's a Paul Heyman guy, and he's available. And so to me, it was great, unpredictable storytelling. So I was prepared for something, but I wasn't 100% sure what I was going to be prepared for.
I like this better than the alternative of another different Paul Heyman guy, Brock Lesnar, showing up.
Yeah.
I like this one better than Brock being a part of that. You?
I would have preferred to have a little Curtis Axel action, but
Curtis, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot that one. Yes,
but
should never count him out.
But if not Curtis Axel, then I think CM Punk. Brock,
that would work that good.
Brock would not have worked in this. He's just too big of a player. Like if he's going to come back, he's going to do a one-on-one feud with somebody, and that's where it needs to be. Brock in a War Games match, yeah. I don't think it works.
Oh yeah, or he's there to clear the entire ring on both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that would have worked in this situation. Moving to the women's real quick, their War Games match. Rhea, Bianca, Jade, who is now questionable. We'll touch on that in a second. Naomi and Io versus Liv, Nia, Raquel, Tiffany, and Candice LeRae. If I'm just being super honest, I haven't followed this one. I don't know what you know about this feud between the ladies on this and what the outcome could be. The biggest thing that I still see out of all of this is between Nia Jackson and Tiffany Stratton. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, this came up quick. I would argue that this might be the biggest story fumble from the last year. Only because, not that the people involved weren't trying, but they had to put together a women's War Game match. And that's the dirty, ugly B-side of kind of where we're at. We went through the women's revolution. I'm super thankful for everything that's happened. But we've got to break the idea that we have to have these specialized matches, one for one, gender-wise, on every pay-per-view. It just doesn't make sense. Now, we've seen the transformation of Hell in a Cell back from a pay-per-view that you could always count on 3 cell matches in that pay-per-view. And now it's become a little more dangerous again. I think War Games stands that potential too. I'm very thankful to be away from the 5-on-5 Survivor Series thing just for a minute. It'll be nice to come back to, but again, we hit that thing where it was like, oh, well, we have to have a 5-on-5 Survivor Series match. Says who, Right. And so the women's match, getting back to the original point, it was rushed. It came together in a week or two. I'm sure it'll be fine. There'll be a couple good spots, but there's really not a lot of story built into it. But I will give the ladies credit to say, talking out of both sides of my mouth, when you're trying to compete with a Bloodline War Games match,
it's next to impossible.
It's next to impossible. So it's not their fault.
And that's really kind of the point, though. If you don't have something as big as what is what kind of entails having a War Games match, why are you having a War Games match? See, on the surface, it just makes sense. Old Bloodline, new Bloodline. It's time for them to get inside a cage that you can't escape. You have advantages on either side from time to time, and you work it out in the ring, right? For the women, just to say that they have a War Games match is kind of I don't like it for them, if I'm just being honest. Mm-hmm. I don't like it for the ladies. You're almost set up to fail sometimes because the story isn't there.
Yep. Let's
build a story. I mean, if we're going to have a War Games match. Okay, then let's really build something over the last 6 months that would necessitate having a War Games match at Survivor Series. Well, if not, just have a couple of really great matches with the ladies.
Not only that, you could have put the same intentionality into having the women do a 5-on-5 Survivor Series match.
Yeah. Make them the traditional one.
Yeah, make them the traditional one. And maybe next year it's flipped and vice versa. But to force through this War Games match, I think was a little lazy from the office side. Now, I say that, who am I, to even pretend to know the reasonings that they went down this path behind the scenes. But, at the same time, I would defend my opinion to say all that matters is the show when it comes down to it. And that match just feels a little soft.
It does. The only other match that we have on here, not like it's an afterthought, but this one, it can be really big as well. I think it actually may end up being a turning point for Gunther. We'll have to wait and see on this, but we have Gunther defending his world title against Damian Priest, the one that he won it from, right? And so now where it's almost being built up as Damian Priest has kind of got the upper hand on Gunther after Gunther tried to attack from behind. It feels like they're going back and forth a little bit with Gunther here. I mean, he even corrected Ludwig Kaiser saying, Cody was just the better man over in Saudi Arabia. Well, that's not something you really say as a heel, but then jumping a guy from behind is, and then getting whipped by the guy that you jumped from behind. I don't know what I'm supposed to think about these two, and more importantly, what I'm supposed to think about this match coming up on Saturday at Survivor Series. How are you feeling about Gunther and Damian Priest?
Well, I like that we've come back to it. I appreciate the regime being able to say, okay, we've got a few things that we need to put on the front burner, but we're not going to be done with Damian and Gunther. And then to bring it back to the forefront, I think is really, really great storytelling. It's proof that we just don't have to rush stuff, and it's fine. I'm just as invested in this rematch as I was, their original match. This is tough booking, though. I don't envy whoever's going to produce this match. There's a lot of star power to protect here. And do you play hot potato with the title between these two guys, which is not one of my favorite things. Damian has a lot of steam right now. He's selling a good bit of merchandise. He's getting a lot of praise backstage, but Gunther just looks to be a more polished champion. He's great on the mic. It's tough to book, man. I think it's going to be a great match, but in terms of an outcome, I would probably say I'll take maybe a slightly different approach, and I'll say 51-49 Damian for this match.
There are some people that think that they are working right now on turning Gunther face. Not necessarily in this match. I mean, I think if he loses the match and it's clean, Damian wins in the middle of the ring, all this stuff, there's no nefarious stuff happening outside the ring, he gets up and shakes his hand and walks out, Gunther becomes a face at the end of that. Or if he slaps Ludwig Kaiser, whatever. But that's going to be interesting to watch, maybe not just specifically this match at Survivor Series, but those two guys, specifically Gunther, as we move along over the next few weeks, heading into the Netflix era. Now, we already talked about CM Punk coming back and Paul Heyman. There's been a couple of things I've seen online that are comparing, we noticed, and I think everybody noticed this, Paul Heyman dressed a little bit different. In fact, he looked a little bit like a little older, a little pudgier, a little whiter Solo Sikoa in how he was dressed. He just needed some gloves on. Is this a little hint at something to come? I mean, I'm kind of thinking that they're writing something, even whether it's a week or a year. Yeah. We don't know.
I don't know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I just wouldn't.
Or Paul's luggage got lost and that was the only thing that
fit. I don't put it beyond Paul Heyman just to screw with people. And
that's true too.
I think whatever it's for, I think we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, if we were only in the third inning a year ago, I mean, we're maybe in the fifth now, maybe.
Bottom of the fourth, maybe.
But
who knows?
But I think it was interesting. I think it gave us something to kind of pay attention to speculate about. And that's where the fun is, because even if they didn't do anything with it, the simple fact that we get to wonder and speculate, isn't that isn't that what this is all about anyway? It's
Sure.
just something to distract us from our mortgages and credit cards.
That's totally it. That's what we hope to be doing here for you on this podcast as well. If you're watching right now on YouTube and you haven't liked this, you haven't subscribed, do that for us if you wouldn't mind, because it's free to you, doesn't obligate you to anything, just helps the algorithm on YouTube tell other people that, hey, you liked it. Maybe this other person will like it too. So we appreciate if you would do that. If you're listening right now, wherever that might be, just a like on this audio would help the podcast tremendously. So appreciate you guys doing that. Mentioned Jade Cargill, why she might be questionable coming up for Survivor Series. During a qualifying match for her tag team partner, Bianca Belair, they show up on the screen that she being Jade has been slammed through the windshield of a car out in the garage, unconscious, fully decked out, but blood coming from her head and knocked out, sitting there on top of the hood of that car. Do you see her doing all of that and then showing up at Survivor Series on Saturday?
I don't think so. My sources have been telling me that Jade is legitimately injured. That we're looking at that it could be semi-serious. I think they're trying a non-invasive option first, maybe some rehab and stuff like that. See if they can get her back in a month or two. If that doesn't work, what I'm reading is that she'll probably have to have surgery and be out for a year.
Wow.
So, which could derail a lot of stuff, because I know they had a lot of plans for her kind of in 2025. So
that's cool. You keep your ear to that, because I've completely disconnected from the rumor mills. I'll see, or even credible news, I would say, stuff like that, where I can just be in the dark. And if you have the details on that, appreciate you bringing that here to us, because that's a shame either way. Whether it's, she's out even a few months, that was she and Bianca were headed to at some point a turn, and I believe from Bianca. Because I've heard she's really close with Mark Henry, and I've heard Mark say she is going to make a fantastic heel.
Yeah.
And usually the best baby faces too. Never got to see that from Cena. I wonder if we'll get that in his last year. Can we get a couple of months of a heel Cena in this last run? More on that later. The last thing we'll touch on from SmackDown this past week, Cody and Kevin Owens. Possibly. I mean, I don't know if Dave Meltzer gives 5 stars to promos. If he did, this one would have to have it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you don't often in pro wrestling get to sit back and listen to a promo and go, that makes sense.
Yeah. All of it made sense. And it was interesting, because Cody would say something, I'd go, that's true. Yep. And then Kevin would say something, I'd go, man, he's got Cody right there.
Yep.
And it just volley back and forth. I'm like, there's not a lie. I wanted to go back to CM Punk. Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Yep.
Because there wasn't one.
Yep. And it adds that additional layer of reality, because in regimes gone by, you would see these turns where you'd have 2 guys that hated each other in October, and then November they're teaming on the same team for the traditional 5 of, and it gets frustrating. And what we're seeing by paying attention. And I remember when Trips took over the second time, maybe, I don't know.
One of them,
that we talked a lot about that shift of, like, they would call back to things from a year ago, or, whatever this. And it matters to remember those details. And it just makes me as a fan feel like they're not insulting my intelligence. These people see each other all the time. They see each other backstage. I think in the hustle and bustle of the business, you can forget, like, oh yeah, we hate each other, and so it's nice that we're actually keeping track of reality and storylines now.
And to your point on this as well, I mean, part of one of the main points of this feud is because Cody teamed with a guy he was feuding with.
Yep.
Kind of ironic with you saying that, but there was nothing that I think that was said that was untrue. I mean, even Cody ripping his own shirt out of the passion that he had about what he was saying, and about Kevin Owens being in his own way. But I think the killer for me was that if you think what I did to basically, and not word for word, what I did to Randy Orton was bad, I loved Randy. I hate.
Yeah.
When these two meet, and I thought, well, maybe they're going to announce this for Survivor Series and be another match. You wouldn't do that in a week. What I did notice is they are going to be going head-to-head at Saturday night's main event, and that's coming up on December 14th. Looking forward to seeing Saturday night's main event come back to NBC. Of course, I love that way better than Saturday Night Live anyway, so excited to see them do that. Anything else we need to hit before Survivor Series this Saturday?
I don't think so. I'm ready to get myself into a turkey coma, you know, hit up all those leftovers over the weekend and watch some Survivor Series. It's just part of the holiday.
Starts at 5 p.m. Central. I'll get a couple of hours. I'll have to double screen it before Texas and Texas A&M play football. First time they've done this in, like, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, 17 years. This is a heated rivalry. And so the Longhorns are headed in to play the Aggies in College Station, home of the 12th man, on Saturday, and renewing that rivalry for the SEC. Is the cool part about that game. The winner of that game goes to the SEC championship against the Georgia Bulldogs. Wow. So it's going to be a big game. So lots on TV, lots to do, lots of football, lots of turkey, and I hope lots of love for you and your family. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Michael, same to you, and good to see you this week.
Thanks, man, for having me. I appreciate it.